Yeah. I mean, I remember speaking to James Woods about Once Upon a Time in America. We were fortunate to work with him in North Fork, and he played my father, and we had a lot of downtime inside the car talking and, not knowing what would happen to me in the future. We talked about what happened to Sergio Leone and Once Upon a Time in America and how that film was a beautiful, amazing success in Cannes that year, and the financier felt that it wasn't going to play well in the United States, so they cut it down from 4 hours to 2 hours, and it literally devastated the movie and devastated the cast. And I mean, look at the cast from De Niro all the way across the board to James, and they were literally devastated, and the film didn't even play. I think it played a weekend in L.A., and he unfortunately ended up passing away shortly after that. Mm-hmm. And then, you'd have to contribute maybe to a broken heart at a certain point. Mm-hmm. And so you listen to these stories, and you can dig deep and get through them.
Kubi, I'm wondering what you can add, because if I understand this correct, Stay Cool was that the first instance that you were collaborating with the Polish brothers on one of their films?
Yeah.
And then so, I mean, this must have been like, you're finally like, yes, I have the opportunity, we get to collaborate in this fashion, and then it's also turns into somewhat of a sour experience for you. Can you talk on it?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to add to that. It was just really, we were flying high. I mean, the good news is that you really can't take away from that first part of the experience. That's always there. We'll always have Paris. And we did screen the film in Tribeca the way it was meant to be screened, and it was a packed audience in their biggest screening room, and it was a huge success. So that is there, and that can't be taken away anymore. And the new version doesn't have my music in it anymore, but I still proudly feature the credit, and I won't take it down, because the version that screened in Tribeca, that was my music. And so, and it obviously helps that we got to do it again on For Lovers Only. It you dust yourself off and get up and do another one.
And on the other side of it, is there an instance that you can pinpoint in your career that was a difference maker for you? Words of encouragement, a big break, the right person believing in you, anything along those lines?
It all goes back to our first film, Twin Falls, Idaho. That without that movie being made, we don't essentially have a career going to Sundance, doing the things that at that point in the 90s, in the late 90s, established you as an independent filmmaker, going to Sundance, getting in. You look back on that and you go, how important that was to make a movie, very difficult movie to make about Siamese twins, and having that festival accept it. Once you were accepted, you won everything. You ended up, that's such a difficult festival to get into, and you didn't have to win any awards. You didn't have to, the press that you got, what we garnered off of that film festival was a career, because you got to make movie after movie. Every door's open after that.
Mark, did you have any idea you'd get into Sundance?
No, not at that point. I mean, when we finished Twin Falls, Idaho, I mean, there was moments where you looked at the film and you're very proud of what had happened, what we had done, but you don't know the reaction of how people are going to respond to guys, if they're going to even believe us, if the believability that we're conjoined twins, if that's even going to fly. You have that whole kind of anticipation of, is this going to be a freak show, or people are going to identify with this kind of fusion of a married couple almost. So you're concerned how that's going to play. And we were fortunate that we had some people up there like Jeff Gilmore and Trevor Groth and people like that really, even Rebecca Yeldham at the time, that believed in us as filmmakers. And we shot that in 17 days and $500,000. So and with no acting, prior film acting, and none of the three leads. So on paper, it didn't look very good. So we were very, very fortunate that we had the success we did. And that is the difference maker of why we continue to make movies.
And if we come all the way to present time here, making a film has never been easier. Obviously, it was much more challenging when you guys made Twin Falls, Idaho. Should everyone who wants to make a film make a film?
Sure. I mean, but that's almost like saying everybody wants to live in a house, build their house. If you know how to do it, sink nails, figure it out. You know, it's a passion. It's a big passion plea to do it. There's talent. You have to have some sort of talent, just like with an instrument. You have to work at it, and if you have it, part of it's just being very tenacious too.
Yeah, I mean, I speak a lot to young kids, especially in this festival that around here, running around. I want to make my movie. How do I make my movie? And there's never been a time where the tools are right in front of you between the cameras and the editorial. That stuff wasn't even there when we started. So the only excuse is you at this point. Sure, you're going to need talent, but I think more so you're going to need the motivation to be able to shoot something, and and craft that story.
How much do you believe a filmmaker should spend on their first feature film?
As little as possible,
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, I don't know if there's a monetary value to what it's going to be, or a number you place on it. A few $1,000 here and there is probably what you need to spend.
And used to independent filmmaking used to always follow the Hollywood studio, where you have to get the Panavision camera, you have to get film, you have to get the lights, and we were always chasing that production value. Mm-hmm. Now it's at the crossroads where that production value is right at the independent filmmaker's hands. So the natural light and the smaller light and just electricity alone in the film, the cost is relatively cheaper now. I mean, really cheap to make your first film, where Twin Falls, Idaho now would have cost maybe $20,000 or $30,000. Mm-hmm. It would have looked identically the same, and that's the cost of the crews and the film and the lenses and all that.
One thing that I'm kind of observing now is that because of the way technology developed, everything that's happening in film now is very parallel to what happened in music, like, say, 5 to 10 years ago. And the one thing that happened back then that I think is really an important lesson for everybody now is that when everybody, was able to put together the little mixers and computers and synths and make records, they started to, which is great. But then you went to a place like mp3.com at the time, and you listened to just random stuff, and it was completely forgettable. And so with this new technology and with these new tools that, now you only need $2,000 to buy your access pass, so to speak, comes the responsibility to actually have something to say. And so I think that's really the thing that I think is the most important thing to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. Just because you can make a movie quickly doesn't relieve you at all from the responsibility to, you're still stealing somebody's 2 hours. Mm-hmm. So make it worth their while to give you those 2 hours, because that's a very valuable thing to give to somebody, 2 hours.
Right. It's kind of like, just because you can sing in the high school choir doesn't mean you go on American Idol.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Film Courage on LATalkRadio.com. We are joined by filmmakers Michael Polish, Mark Polish, and music composer Kubilay Uner. Their latest film, For Lovers Only, is available on iTunes and Amazon. Rent it or purchase it today.
That's right. Join the fray. How much has For Lovers Only revitalized you guys? Because who would have thought that this little movie, with no budget, with no crew, you have just a camera and 2 actors, would sort of catch on the way that it has. Can you talk about how this film has revitalized you?
Well, somewhere down the line we were going to make this movie. Our first initial approach was 10 years ago was to go take a Super 8 camera or our 16 millimeter camera and go to Paris and shoot this movie on film. Mm-hmm. We ended up getting very busy and doing almost a movie every year. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until we had a little bit of downtime in between projects that Mark and I said, the technology's here. We want to make another movie. We should go to Paris, or let's be expatriates and go over there and make this French New Wave type movie. And so we did that. And it said, let's spend no money. It's it's going to cost. What it cost us was basically travel, because everything over there was relatively free. I mean, Paris is your backdrop. I was lucky enough to know a hoteler that had hotels, and he was letting us stay there and eat there, and so we had a lot of help. If we needed a motorcycle, we knew somebody had a motorcycle. If we needed a car, we want specific things that became this movie was basically handouts.
So although it's in France, you still had pre-existing relationships and access to resources.
Yeah, and it was quite immediate because I didn't have a lot of relationships over there. I would meet one person and they said, "Well, I have a friend who has this," or "We have a friend that has this," and that's how it was built. It was very, very, very quick.
Yeah, I mean, it was very organic in the way that, we didn't let any stumbling blocks. If, we got a certain room, we shot in that room. We didn't really look. I mean, there was some kind of organization in the script where we wanted, the size of the room to change as the relationship of the couple changed, from bigger to smaller. And so we kept conscious of some of the storyline stuff, but for the most part, if there was any kind of roadblock, we just kind of overlooked it and, turned the camera the other way or did something differently to make sure that we could do it. We didn't really let anything stop us from getting the frame or the shot that we needed to get.
We read something about, you had a meeting set up at Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And then you sort of like, you kind of pushed the meeting back a month or something, and you went out to France and you made this movie. Like, it was that.
Yeah,
quick.
we call it our in between meeting movie, because we were going to Warner's and they said, can we move this meeting? And they said, well, how long are you going to move it? They said, we're going to push it for a few weeks. And Mark and I said, well, let's go make a movie. We'll come back. And that's basically what we did. We made a movie, came back, and actually we walked into DreamWorks, and we have a friend over there. We were meeting on another project, and he said, you guys made that movie? And then he ended up watching. He goes, that's the movie you made between our meetings? We said, yeah, that's it.
Now, Kubi, when did you find out about all this? I mean, since it was made so fast, when did word get to you that you have a new project to score?
I suddenly saw like pictures of the Love Hotel in Paris, and I'm like thinking, shoot, they're shooting this movie. So, at some point, then I was actually on jury duty, and I get a call from Sean O'Grady, who's one of the producers who works with Mike and Mark, and he said, I was in the jury pool waiting room, and he said, can you come by? And so I said, yeah, give me a moment. And I went up to the window and said, I need a postponement now. And she said, you're going to lose your half day. I said, I don't fucking care. I need my postponement now. So, and that night we went to the editing room, and that was it.
All right. And you guys are making waves with For Lovers Only by the way you're distributing the film.
Right.
You guys have bypassed theatrical distribution. You've gone right to iTunes, right to Amazon. When did you make that decision about how it was? Was that from the very beginning, even before you made the film? You guys figured out like, okay, this is where we're going to distribute this film.
There was a thought when we left, because the iPad just came out. The first iPad was just released, and we were on the plane. I think Mark mentioned this. It would be nice to have one of the first movies made for that device. Just send For Lovers Only. We knew it was going to be an intimate piece. We got, if you could get this movie on an iPad and you could be in your room, you could be in bed, you could be on a plane, you can watch this movie. That'd be a great way to set this movie up. You shoot it for the theater, you shoot it for the big screen. It's shot to be displayed that way. But it necessarily didn't have to go that route. We knew that from the very beginning. We knew we'd have screenings of it. We knew we wanted to play in a movie house, but for some reason this movie was very, very intimate, and it felt that people could watch it whenever they wanted to watch it and see it whenever they wanted to see it. And so that was a big motivation behind it, was to get it to the people as quick as you can.